Where was I? Ah, yes. The house archives would place another name over the same date. Bloody night. It was strange, because everything had begun in daylight. But some nights did not look at the clock. The Phoenix Delacroix Aid and Alliance reception in support of St. Bridget's was being held in the hotel's hidden wing in the Grand Hall. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than a high-donation, high-born, highly dull luncheon. War orphans, curse victims, healing funds, a new partnership between British and French wizarding families, silver spoons, polite handshakes, expensive roses, very old surnames. Everything was as it should have been. That was the first lie of the day. The hall had been filled with gold and cream light. The chandeliers hung overhead like frozen clusters of stars. On the walls, the emblem of St. Bridget's hung beside the Phoenix and Delacroix crests. The music was light. The conversations pretended to be lighter. For the children, all of it was simply one of the adults' strange games. That was why the children had been kept not in the middle of the hall, but in a wide children's alcove near the eastern wall. A low screen enclosed the front of it. Inside were small cushions, a low table, several silver plates, fruit sweets, little ribboned boxes, and decorated toys to be sold in support of St. Bridget's. It was within the adults' line of sight, away from the service doors, not with its back to the balcony line. 2 young attendants stood nearby, preventing the children from wandering too far. For dynastic children, this counted as free play, meaning supervised captivity between 4 walls, but with more expensive cushions. Prudence Phoenix stood at the edge of the alcove, counting her fingers. 1, door. 2, main table. 3, side passage with the red curtain. 4, her mother, Wildebertha's gaze. A 5-year-old child should not have needed to count such things. But Prudence already did not do most things because she should. The room was too large. The people were too bright. The smiles were too smooth. So she counted. If you are counting, you are calm. No one had taught her that sentence yet. She had found it herself. Sometimes, even as a child, a person invented small cruelties to keep themselves alive. "You're counting," said Dwyer beside her. Prudence did not look at her. "No, you're counting. And you're fiddling with Mother's bracelet." Dwyer remembered the thin gold bracelet Wildebertha had bent down and allowed her to inspect a moment earlier, then lifted her eyebrows. Could something be hidden inside this? Prudence turned. "You don't ask questions like that at receptions." Dwyer thought about this very seriously. "When do you ask them, then?" "Never. That is very impractical." Wildebertha Phoenix heard this from a few steps beyond the children's alcove. She tried not to laugh. Failed. The laugh remained small, but Prudence saw it. Then her mother's eyes moved to the other side of the hall. The smile was put away behind an adult expression. Prudence saw that too. Adults could hide even joy when necessary. Edgar stood near the screen instead of sitting at the low table in front of the alcove. His small shoulders were straight. He was holding the ribboned program upside down, but he did not care. He was looking at the doors. Ambrose Vale watched his son from a distance. Then he came closer to the children's alcove and touched Edgar's shoulder lightly. "Stop watching the doors." Edgar lifted his head. "There are too many doors." "Yes. Which one are we leaving through?" A brief, sad smile appeared on Ambrose's face. Hopefully the normal one. Marvin had climbed onto the low table and was examining the carved markings on the wall. A 5-year-old should have been interested in cake, sweets, and shiny spoons. Marvin, however, was trying to understand why the old seal line in the wall ornament had been turned backwards. Humanity had once again misunderstood child rearing, but the result was interesting. "They've done this wrong," he said. Sir Wentworth Phoenix bent forward, leaning on his cane. "What? That mark. It looks like a closing seal, but it's reversed. Maybe they did it for decoration. That is a terrible idea." Wentworth looked at the mark on the wall for 1 second too long. Then he turned back to Marvin. "We will discuss this later." Marvin's face brightened. "Does that mean I'm right?" "It means be quiet now." Marvin nodded with satisfaction. Close relatives. At the far end of the hall, Madame Solange Delacroix was adjusting her son's collar. Pierre Delacroix stood without moving. He was too composed for a 5-year-old child. His hair was neat, the buttons of his jacket fastened, his chin neither too high nor too low. He looked less like a child than a diplomatic file brought into the hall at a very young age. Arthur Delacroix bent down beside his son. The bone line of his British origin was still readable on his face. French discipline did not soften that line. It made it more dangerous. "Pierre," he said quietly, "when you enter a room, do not first look at who is speaking." Pierre lifted his head. "What should I look at? Who is silent?" Pierre's gaze moved over the hall. Then it caught on Prudence. Prudence was looking at him too. Neither of them smiled. It was a strange but honest way of meeting. Pierre took 1 step toward the children's alcove. Solange's fingers remained on his shoulder for 1 moment too long, then released him, not letting go, permitting. Pierre stood in front of Prudence. "You are the Phoenix girl," he said. Prudence lifted 1 eyebrow very slightly. "And you are the Delacroix boy. Everyone knows that. I am one of everyone." Pierre considered this. "No," he said at last, "you don't stand like one." Before Prudence could answer, Sarah Rookwood stepped in. Her red hair gleamed like copper in the hall light. Dean stood beside her. Dean's collar was slightly crooked, and Sarah regarded this as an unforgivable failure of management. "You look too serious as well," Sarah said, looking at Prudence. Prudence turned to her. "And you speak too much as if you're giving orders." Sarah was not offended at all, because most people don't do the right thing on their own. Dean sighed. "I was doing it." Sarah fixed his collar. "You were nearly doing it." Dean looked at Prudence. "It's always like this." The corner of Prudence's mouth moved very slightly. "That is clear." Sarah saw it. Friendship did not immediately appear between them. Something more interesting happened. They measured one another. Sarah noticed that when Prudence stayed silent, she did not retreat. Prudence saw that Sarah did not wait for approval when she spoke. 2 little girls in silk dresses and polished shoes drew their small borders in the middle of the hall. When they grew older, they would entrust secrets to one another. But that day, they were not confidants yet. They were still 2 small candidates for sovereignty, and there was far too little space on the same carpet. Just then, laughter broke out. Phelan Cale Greymoor came over to them, dark hair untidy, an impudent expression on his face that belonged to children who believed the world worked a little too slowly for them. His father, Orion Greymoor, watched him from a few steps away, with the expression of a man thinking, "Bringing this child into the hall was my mistake. But it is too late now. If you stand that seriously, the adults will mistake you for a speech," said Phelan. Dean immediately asked, "What's a speech?" Phelan shrugged. "Something no one listens to, but everyone nods at." Sarah pressed her lips together. "Who are you?" "Phelan." "That is not what I asked." Phelan paused for a moment, then he smiled. "Good. You're not boring." Sarah's eyes narrowed. Dean whispered very quietly, "You've done it now." This time, Prudence turned her face away to keep from laughing. At that moment, Aileen Allie Calder was crouched near the gold-fringed curtain of the children's alcove. A small, winged creature was trembling behind a potted plant. The ornate air of the reception hall had disturbed the poor creature at least as much as it disturbed the adults. Allie was holding out her hand, but not touching it. "Come here," she whispered. "I'm not going to eat you." Aurelian Calder stood behind her. Ori had not bent down excitedly the way Allie had. He was more interested in what the creature was not looking at. Despite his young age, some children heard the silence of fear more than its sound. Saying that made it less convinced, he said. Allie frowned. "Then you say something." Ori looked at the creature, then at the hall, then at the musicians standing near the window, then at the dark mud stuck to the shoe of one of the men by the door. "It doesn't want to run," he said. Allie looked surprised. "It doesn't. It isn't afraid of outside." Prudence heard that sentence. Ori's voice was not loud, but some sentences came to the ear on their own. Prudence looked at him. Ori turned to her too. His eyes moved to Prudence's hand. Prudence was counting her fingers without realizing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ori tilted his head. "Why do you look like you're burning?" Prudence's brows drew together. "I don't. You do. You look too much." Ori did not deny it. "You're like a firebird," he said. "Burning, but not flying." Dwere immediately stepped in. "That's good. I'm going to call you that from now on." "No," said Prudence. Phelan turned with enormous satisfaction on his face. "So will I." "No." Dean thought about it. "I might forget." Sarah looked at him. "You won't." Dean nodded. "I won't." Prudence turned back to Ori. "You started this." Ori lifted one shoulder slightly. "You already seemed started." Prudence did not like that sentence. That was why she remembered it. Pierre watched this from a distance. He looked at Ori, then at Prudence. Then, without saying anything, he adjusted his collar. Solange noticed and placed her hand on her son's shoulder. That touch was as much warning as affection. Madame Solange Delacroix's hand was not soft. Of course, her fingers were elegant. Her gloves were expensive. A thin bracelet with a dark blue stone circled her wrist. But when that hand settled on Pierre's shoulder, the child straightened, as if his mother was not merely keeping him beside her, but preparing him for somewhere. Arthur Delacroix saw this. He did not look at Solange, because in some marriages, not everything was spoken. Some things were understood from the line of a child's shoulders. At the other end of the hall, Rowan Calder, Ori's father, looked toward the children's alcove and smiled very faintly. Men who were not afraid of creatures smiled differently. They did not belittle the living thing, only accepted that it was right in its own way. Beside him stood Seren Ashdown Calder. She had tried too hard that morning to make Ori's hair neat, but the child's nature had defeated her. Marianne Phoenix Calder leaned toward Allie and said quietly, "Don't put your hand too close." Allie answered at once, "I'm not." Ori added dryly, "She is." Allie looked at him. "Aren't you on my side?" "I'm on the creature's side. This is family betrayal. This is a field decision." Marianne laughed. Then she lifted her head and looked at Wildebertha. A brief, warm, kinship glance passed between the two Phoenix women. There was tiredness in that look, love, the small, stubborn, we-came-anyway defiance that belonged to families with too many children and a world that was not safe enough. The Rookwood couple stood a few steps behind Sarah and Dean. Their father watched his children's quarrel with the patience of a man used to it, while their mother tried to stop Sarah from adjusting Dean's collar for the third time, then gave up. Some wars were lost even by mothers. Orion Greymuir looked at Phelan as if to say, "Don't get too close." Phelan interpreted this as get closer. Naturally, most children ruin life this way. Some simply do it with more charisma. Abel Abe. Rourke stood near the edge of the hall like a piece of mountain accidentally invited by protocol. He wore a suit, but the suit did not feel safe on him. He was godfather to the Phoenix quadruplets, and carried that not like a title, but like a door to be kicked open in a fight. Marvin waved at him. Abe raised an eyebrow. Marvin ran over to him. "That seal is reversed." Abe looked at the wall. "Don't ask me about reversed and right side up, child. If a door is open, I enter. If it's closed, I break it. That isn't scientific. I'm alive, so it works." Marvin considered this. "That is also data." The corner of Abe's mouth moved. "Don't tell your family that. They'll call me a bad example again." "They already do." "Good. That means they're still honest." Sir Alaric Vale was watching them from a distance. There was a calm attention on his face. Beside him, several ministry dignitaries moved between funding discussions and diplomatic smiles. When Abel Rourke and Alaric Vale stood in the same room, one understood more clearly why kinship was sometimes considered cursed. It was 1211. Prudence did not know that. But some of the adults at the front felt time begin to move differently in that moment. The first oddity was in the music. One of the violins missed a note. That alone was not important. Humans made mistakes. Musicians were unfortunately required to behave like humans too. But Ari lifted his head, because the small winged creature at the bottom of the hall had trembled before the note. Ari saw it. He touched Allie. "Take it." Allie whispered, "What?" "Now." Allie carefully cupped the creature in both hands. The second oddity was in the light. The chandeliers did not go out. Something worse happened. For one moment, they burned too brightly. The whole hall drowned in golden light. People smiled, because most people assume bright things are good. What a miserable defense mechanism. Marvin saw the seal line on the wall turn black for a moment. "Grandfather," he said. Wentworth was already turning to him. "What happened?" The seal didn't answer. Wentworth's face changed, very slightly, but Prudence saw it. The third oddity was the smell. Dwyer noticed it before anyone else. It was not exactly sweet almond, not floral either. It was something malicious trying to behave like perfume. 5-year-old Dwyer could not name it, but she did not like it. She clung to her mother's skirt. "Mother," she said. Wildebertha bent down. "What is it?" "The smell is bad." Before Wildebertha could answer, a waiter at the main door of the hall dropped a tray. The silver tray struck the marble floor. The sound was too loud, and that sound became the signal for the attack. Below, the lobby of the London Hilton exploded. First came the sound. A huge blind sound rising from the lower floors of the hotel, breaking marble, glass, metal, and human voices all at once. Then the pressure. The magical hall in the hidden wing was not entirely separate from the world of Nogs. No magic could split the world completely in two. It only delayed some things, hid others, and recorded some under another name. The shock wave of the explosion struck the walls of the hall like an invisible animal. The chandeliers went mad at once. The glass cracked. The tremor, rising from beneath the marble floor, reached the children's knees. Several attackers, just as they were entering from the service corridor, were thrown backward. The faces of the two men nearest the door were cut by glass and stone fragments before they could understand what had happened. One man's wand flew from his hand. The other was hurled into the wall by the backlash of his own magic when the black ring seal at his neck tore loose and embedded itself in his chest. Sometimes history accidentally helped the wrong people. The bomb below did not stop the slaughter above, but it opened a door for one breath, for one escape. Enough for a child not to die. When the light in the hall flickered again, everyone moved at once. The reception ended. Vault discipline began. Prudence would never remember how Wildebertha Phoenix's wand came into her hand. 1 second, her mother was holding her hand. The next, The sleeve of her navy dress had opened, and silver light was coming from her wrist. The first attacker's mask was torn from his face. The second fell to his knees. The third raised a spell toward the children's alcove. That was when Wildebertha turned. She could have killed the attacker. She chose to protect her children. And on some nights, a choice becomes a grave. Ambrose Vale threw Edgar backward and stepped between two attackers at the same time. The gray light from his wand opened in the center of the hall like a wall. The first curse struck that wall and rebounded, tearing through the attacker's own shoulder. The second attacker came from the side. Before Ambrose broke his wrist, the man's spell melted a woman's goblet. Arthur Delacroix stood before Solange and Pierre. There was no haste in Arthur's movements. That made it more frightening. He took the first attacker not in the chest, but in the knee. As the man fell, Arthur's second spell had already cracked the black ring at his throat. Rowan Calder pulled Ori behind him. He made no sound. His hands speaking was enough. He separated one attacker's wand from his wrist. He drove another attacker's magic into the marble floor. The marble cracked as if lightning had entered it. Marianne Phoenix Calder pressed Allie behind the children's alcove and, with a healer's reflex, pressed a finger to her own wrist. The moment her blood touched the floor, a small, warm ring of protection opened. It would not last long, but for children, sometimes a short time was everything. Orion Greymoor pulled Phelan to himself with one arm and caught an attacker's wand in the air with his other hand. He should not have touched the wand. Everyone knew that. Orion touched it. The magic burned his hand. The man still did not let go. Then he broke the attacker's nose with his forehead. The Rookwood father closed the left line of the children's alcove. Their mother took the right. They moved at the same time, as if they had practiced it before. Perhaps they had. Dynastic children did not only take dance lessons. In some families, parents were taught how not to die in front of their children. How magnificent! How nauseating! Sir Wentworth Phoenix stepped into the center of the hall. The silver head of his cane cracked. The old wand that emerged from within gave not light, but shadow. "Children to the center," he said. That command cut through all the noise of the hall. Abe Rourke threw Marvin back into the children's ring, not gently, in a way that would keep him alive. "Kneel." Marvin was going to object. Abe looked at him. Marvin knelt. Alaric Vale walked toward the broken seal on the eastern wall. His face was white, but his hands were steady. This was not wisdom, not yet. This was the discipline of postponing panic and returning to work. His brother Ambrose was in the middle of the fight. Abe saw it. So did Alaric. But the children were still inside. And some people got the children out first, then broke apart later. When the first curse came toward the children's ring, the hall changed. The attacker's purpose was no longer debatable. It was not to get past the adults. It was to reach the children. Wildebertha bent as if kneeling before Prudence and Dwyer. But this was not surrender. She brought her body down to their level. One hand went to the back of Prudence's neck, the other to Dwyer's shoulder. Down. There was no gentleness in her voice this time. Gentleness would come later, if one was alive. Prudence felt her knees strike the marble floor. Dwyer's small hand clenched her wrist hard enough to hurt. Wildebertha's dress closed over them. The navy fabric looked like night for a moment in the golden light. Prudence smelled her mother. Not lavender, not soap. Fear? Mothers could hide fear, but sometimes their bodies did not lie to their children. Wildebertha raised her right hand. The spell coming for the children split in two in midair. One half of the magic struck the ceiling. The other half landed in Wildebertha's back. There was no sound. That was the first thing Prudence learned. Death did not always scream. Wildebertha's body tightened for one moment. Then her breath broke. Broke was the right word, as if an invisible thin branch had cracked inside her chest. But she did not fall. Not yet. Wildebertha clenched her teeth. Without turning, without rising from over the children, she held her wand backwards in her left hand and sent one final strike at the attacker who had cast the spell. The black ring on the man's chest burst. The attacker was thrown backward, slid across the marble, and did not move. Only then did Wildebertha collapse, over her children. Something warm splashed across Prudence's face. At first, she did not understand what it was. Then the taste of metal reached her tongue. Blood. Her mother's blood. Dwyer was trapped beneath Wildebertha's arm. Her eyes had gone wide. She was not crying. Not yet. Sometimes a 5-year-old child waits to see what pain will do, because no one has taught her how to meet something like this. What a grand neglect. Adults teach children how to hold spoons, but not what to do if their mother's blood splashes across their faces. Prudence tried to lift her head. Wildebertha's hand was still on the back of her neck, weak, slippery, but still there. "Mother," said Prudence. Wildebertha did not answer, but she turned her head very slightly. Her eyes were open, emerald green eyes, the same as Prudence's own. They were open, but they no longer fully saw. The eyes were there. The color was there. The light was almost there. But her mother was withdrawing from behind those eyes. Prudence saw it. And nothing in her life would ever frighten her as much as that moment. Wildebertha's lips moved. No sound came. Prudence did not hear what her mother said, but she saw her face, saw her eyes, saw a small, broken instruction. Do not get up. Hold your siblings. Do not scatter. A thin line of blood ran from the corner of Wildebertha's mouth. Prudence lifted her hand. Her fingers were shaking. She wiped the blood from her mother's face. The place she wiped did not become clean. The blood spread further. That day, Prudence learned this. Some things could not be wiped away. They only stained your hand as well. Dwyer was holding their mother's wrist. At first, she did not know she was searching for a pulse. She was only holding on. Then she realized there was nothing beneath her fingers. Something was missing. A rhythm. An answer. I am here. Wildebertha Phoenix died over her children. Even while dying, she did not let go of them. Ambrose Vale was still standing when he threw Edgar into the protective line. The gray wall Ambrose had opened against the attackers had closed before the children's ring. He had drowned the first attacker in his own magic and severed the second attacker's hand from his wrist. The third attacker tried to reach the back line. Edgar saw it. His small body was trapped behind the shield. He tried to rise. The shield pushed him back. "Father!" This time, his voice came out. Ambrose did not turn his head. If he turned, he would die. He knew that. Instead, he held his wand with both hands and opened the floor beneath the third attacker. The marble collapsed like a black pit. The man sank into the floor up to his waist and screamed. Ambrose left him there. The fourth attacker came from the musician's line. Ambrose was late, half a second. Sometimes a person carries their whole life with that half second. The curse entered Ambrose through the shoulder and came out through his chest. The man fell to his knees. Still, he did not drop his wand. The attacker raised another spell. Ambrose cast his last spell. This spell produced no light. It only took the sound from the attacker's mouth, then his breath. The man collapsed. So did Ambrose. Abe Rourke said Ambrose's name in that moment. Ambrose. It was not a name. It was the sound of something breaking. Abe surged forward. Alaric Vale caught him by the shoulder. Children first. Abe turned and looked at him. There was no human face in his eyes. Let me go." "Children first," Alaric said again. This time, his voice cracked. Abe's eyes went to Ambrose's blood, then to Marvin, then to Prudence's hand trapped beneath her mother. He swore. An old, heavy, almost sacred curse. Then he broke an attacker's throat with his bare hand and turned back to the children's line. Alaric did not turn around, because if he did, he would see that his brother was dead. And in that moment, he was not a chief instructor, or a wise man, or the House of Vale, or a great mind. He was only a brother. So he did not turn. Edgar was protected. That was why, years later, he would hate protective spells while becoming one of the best at using them. Because sometimes protection keeps you alive while preventing you from going where you most want to go. Solange Delacroix had pulled Pierre behind her. Arthur Delacroix was in front of them, still standing. That would remain in Pierre's mind for years. His father's discipline in refusing to fall even before death. Arthur's coat was torn at the chest. His white shirt was soaked in blood. The cut running down from his shoulder had made his arm heavy, but his wand was still straight. The man's face had paled. His eyes had not. He had already taken down the first attacker, broken the second at the knee. When the third attacker came near Solange, Arthur caught him by the throat. As the man tried to speak, he choked on his own tongue. But there were too many of them, and the children were the target. "Solange," said Arthur. Solange's fingers closed around Pierre's arm. She held him so tightly that Pierre felt pain. That pain came before his father's blood, and that was why it stayed in his mind. Arthur did not step back. "Pierre," he said without taking his eyes off his son, "I will not tell you not to look." Solange inhaled, as if she were about to shout at him. She did not. Arthur continued, "See." Then one of the attackers came from the left. His wand had found Pierre directly, a child. That was the target. Arthur saw it. So did Solange. And then came that 1 second. A woman, caught between reaching for her husband and pulling her son, entered that vile second which splits a life in two. Arthur's blood was flowing. Pierre's arm was in Solange's hand. The attacker's curse was coming. Solange chose Pierre. She pressed her son to her chest, covered his face with her own body, and did not reach for Arthur. Arthur saw it, and he was not angry with her. That destroyed Solange more. Arthur took the attacker's spell into himself. When the curse entered his chest, he staggered back. But before dying, he turned his wand on the attacker. The magic came out not like a sword, but like a sentence. The seal on the attacker's chest collapsed. The man fell to his knees. So did Arthur. He found Solange's hand for one moment. His fingers touched his wife's glove, then slipped away. Pierre saw blood come from his father's mouth. It was so red. A child's mind chose absurd things. How red the red was. The button of a shirt breaking loose and bouncing across the marble. Solange's breath stopping completely for a moment. Arthur sank to his knees. Pierre tried to break free of his mother's arms. "Papa!" Solange did not let go. No. That single word closed the last door of Pierre's childhood. Arthur looked at his son one final time. "First, see," he said. The sound came with difficulty. "Then speak." Then his head fell to the side. Solange did not cry in that moment. Pierre would not forgive her for it. For years. Then one day he would understand. And this time he would not forgive himself for understanding. Solange held her son so tightly that Pierre could not breathe. But he lived. As Arthur Delacroix died, the last answer of House Delacroix remained in his mother's arms. The Rookwood twins were trapped on the left side of the children's ring. Sarah had her hand over Dean's mouth. Dean's breath struck hot against her palm. Dean wanted to move. He wanted to look at their father. He wanted to see where their mother was. Sarah held him. "Quiet," said Sarah. This was not an older sister's order. This was an order to survive. Dean's eyes filled with tears. Sarah did not allow her own eyes to fill. The Rookwood father was guarding the left line of the children's ring. Their mother had taken the right. Both knew how to fight. Neither wanted to die in front of their children. Unfortunately, desire was one of the things history respected least. Their father brought down the first attacker. Their mother cut down the second. When the third attacker bent toward the underside of the table, Sarah saw him. So did Dean. Dean nearly bit the hand over his mouth. Sarah pressed harder, locked her eyes on his. "If you stay silent, you live." She did not say it. Dean understood. The Rookwood father stepped in front of the attacker. He took the first curse. His chest seemed to open backward. He did not fall. He refused to fall. He grabbed the attacker by the collar and pulled him closer. His own blood smeared over the man's face. Then he pressed his wand beneath the attacker's ribs. The spell was short. The man fell. So did the Rookwood father. The Rookwood mother cut the third curse, but the fourth came for her. Her hair flew back. She fell to her knees. Still, she reached for the attacker's wrist on the floor. When her hand closed, the wrist cracked. Then her hand fell. Dean opened his mouth. Sarah covered it again. This time, she was crying too. That night, Sarah learned that to protect the people you loved, sometimes you had to silence even their voices. Dean learned that someone could hurt you while keeping you alive. That knowledge would one day save them both, and ruin them both. Aileen Calder was holding the small winged creature in both hands. The creature was no longer trembling. That was bad. Allie understood it. Even at 5, she knew some silences were not good. Her mother, Marianne Phoenix Calder, pulled her into her arms. "Close your eyes." Allie did not. "Mother, it's afraid." An expression crossed Marianne's face that only those who had children and those who had seen war could understand. "I know." Then the attacker turned toward the children's line. Marianne pressed Allie against herself. To avoid crushing the small creature in her daughter's hands, she pulled her own chest back. Because of that small, irrational, motherly movement, the curse caught her fully exposed. But Marianne did not go empty-handed. Even while receiving a mortal wound, she touched the attacker's glove with her left hand. Healers know certain veins. They are learned to hold life. Marianne used that knowledge for the first time to cut it. The attacker's fingers clenched. His wand fell. Marianne's breath stopped in her daughter's hair. Allie felt her mother's arms grow suddenly heavy. "Mother." Marianne could not speak, but her hand remained at the back of Allie's head. The small creature moved its wing one last time in Allie's palm, then stopped. That night, Allie held 2 deaths at once, one in her arms, one in her hands. That was why, when she grew older, she would never leave a wounded thing on the ground. There would be people who thought this was mercy. It was not. It was a debt owed to a creature that had died in her palm when she was 5. Aurelian Calder was behind his father. Rowan Calder was not one of those men who shouted loudly. He did not shout when casting either. In fact, the only sound he made while stopping the attacker was the slide of his shoe on the marble. Rowan had pushed Auri back, but Auri had not fallen. He had only struck the wall, then immediately looked past his father's shoulder. Auri knew how frightened things moved. The attacker was not frightened. That made him more dangerous. Rowan had understood that too. For one moment, father and son saw the same thing. The attacker's wand was turning toward Auri. Rowan stepped between them. First, he cut the attacker's magic. Then he brought the man to the floor. But the second attacker behind him found Rowan's exposed side. The curse took him in the chest. This time, there was very little blood. It flowed inward, not out. Rowan's eyes widened. A thin, dark line came from his mouth. Ori watched it. "Father?" Rowan sank to his knees. One hand went to the floor, the other to Ori's shoulder. The hand on his shoulder was heavy, warm, then steadily heavier, warmer, more lifeless. "Do not run," said Rowan. Ori breathed in. "What?" Rowan's voice came with great difficulty. "Look, see where fear hides." That was not something to say to a 5-year-old child. But some fathers, once they realize they are going to die, lose the right to treat their children like children. How terrible. How true. Rowan's hand slid from Ori's shoulder. Ori tried to hold his father. He could not. Rowan Calder fell to the floor. Ori did not scream. That was the first thing no one noticed. Ori did not scream. As his father died, he heard something else in the hall beginning to die as well. The small, winged creature in Allie's palm. Ori turned his head, looked at Allie, then at his father, then at the attacker's footprints. People, animals, magic, all of them behaved differently when afraid. Ori learned that night, and never again considered any silence empty. Phelan Cale Greymoor was pinned to the floor with his father's arm locked across his chest. Orion Greymoor was holding his son down. "Let go," said Phelan. "No." "Father." "No." For the first time, Phelan was afraid of his father's voice. Orion's face was hard, but his eyes were on his son. When one of the attackers came directly toward them, Orion pulled Phelan not beneath the carpet, but beneath his own body. Phelan could not breathe. He swore. A childish, incomplete, incorrect swear. For one moment, Orion looked as if he might laugh. Then 2 attackers came down at once. Orion threw the first away from his chest. He grappled with the second. This was no elegant duel anymore. This was a father stopping with bare hands, a killer trying to make space over his son. Orion tore the black ring from the attacker's throat and shoved it into the man's mouth. The ring burst. Both of them were covered in blood. The third curse came then. Orion's body shook over Phelan. Phelan felt something warm drip into his hair. "Father?" No answer came. "Father, get up." Orion's arm was still across his son's chest, protecting him with a dead weight. Phelan tried to push that weight away. His small hands clutched at his father's jacket. The fabric was wet. When he pulled his hand back, his fingers were red. Phelan looked at it. Then he laughed. Once, very briefly, a wrong sound, because some children did not cry at the first terror. Some laughed. The body threw catastrophe out through the wrong door. After that night, people would love Phelan's laugh. None of them would know where it had first broken. Sir Wentworth Phoenix was still standing. Blood flowed from his left arm, and the silver head of his cane had cracked. There was no longer any hostly courtesy on his face. What remained was the head of House Phoenix. That was more dangerous. One attacker bent toward Wildebertha's body, which still lay over the children. Perhaps to finish the work. Perhaps to check the children. Perhaps to see whether anything living remained beneath a dead mother. Wentworth saw him. He lifted his cane. This time, the magic was not elegant. The man's shadow separated from the wall, twined around his own throat. Before the man could even scream, his shadow dragged him to the ground. There was the sound of bone. Short, certain, ugly. Wentworth's face did not move. Then another curse struck him from the side. His left knee broke. His shoulder opened. A black line burned his robe down to his chest. Wentworth did not fall. To keep himself standing, he drove his cane into the floor. The marble cracked. "Get the children out," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. That order returned the minds of the surviving adults to them. Alaric Vale layered his own magic over the broken wall line. Abe Rourke threw the children out one by one, not gently, in a way that would keep them alive. Walk. Run. Don't look. Marvin looked. Abe pressed down on the back of his neck. I said, don't look. I'll forget. Abe's hand paused for one moment. Then he pulled Marvin against him. You won't. It was not reassurance. It was true. Marvin did not cry. That night, some children forgot how to cry, then spent years compensating with other things. Notebooks, poisons, dark magic, political calculations, jokes, silence. Prudence did not come out from beneath her mother's body. She could not. Wildebertha was too heavy. The dead were heavy. That was something adults knew. That day, Prudence learned it too. Dwyer was trapped beneath their mother's arm. Her breath came in broken pieces. Prudence wiped the blood from her face once more. This time she did not know whether it was from her own face or her mother's. Prue, said Dwyer, very small, very afraid. Prudence looked into her mother's open eyes, emerald green, open, but no longer seeing Prudence. Something withdrew inside Prudence. Not a scream, not sobbing. Something deeper, quieter, as if a door had closed and the key had been left on the inside. She brought her hand to her mother's face. She wanted to close her eyes. She could not. When her fingers came near her mother's lashes, her hand trembled. Death was so close that she thought, if she touched it, it would pass into her too. Edgar crawled over to them. His face was covered in blood, but most of it was not his own. He pulled Dwyer free. Prudence did not let go of her mother's hand. Prue, said Edgar, this time like an order. Prudence looked at him. Edgar was 5 years old, but his face no longer was. Come. Prudence wiped the blood from her mother's face one last time. Then she looked at those green eyes. Mother, she said. No answer. Outside, alarms were screaming. Inside, people were dying. Somewhere, Pierre was trapped between his father's blood and his mother's arms. Ori was holding his father's hand. Allie would not let go of the dead creature in her palm. Phelan was trying to crawl out from beneath his father's weight. Sarah and Dean were crying without breath. Marvin was memorizing the reversed seal on the wall. Prudence could not close her mother's eyes. Edgar closed them, with his small fingers, trembling, but he closed them. Prudence never forgot that. Some debts between siblings were never spoken aloud. The escape door opened because of the crack created by the explosion. That was irony. The bomb that would tear apart the Nog world below had given some of the children above a gap through which to escape. Even when humanity produced disaster, it sometimes accidentally produced mercy. You could not tell anyone that. It sounded absurd. When the children were taken out, the Nog world below was still burning. Smoke had reached the upper floors. Glass dust hung in the air. The carpets of the hotel were heavy with ash and water. Screams from both worlds had mingled until no one could tell which cry belonged to which catastrophe. Ministry officials were running. Hotel staff were shouting. Healers were trying to hide their magic inside the sound of ambulances. History was being written inside the same building in two separate ledgers. In one, there was a bomb. In the other, a dynastic massacre. When the children were lined up side by side, none of them was fully crying. None fully speaking. None fully looked like a child. Her mother's blood was drying on Prudence's face. Dwyer had lifted her fingers to her nose and was trying to remember the bad smell. Edgar was watching the door. Marvin licked the blood on his lip and recorded that the taste was metallic. Then he was ashamed. Then he recorded the shame too. Pierre was not speaking. Solange had not let go of him. She would not. Her glove had left a bloody mark on her son's arm. Sarah was still holding Dean's wrist. Dean was still thinking about the way their mother's hand had closed around the attacker's wrist. Allie held the dead little creature in her palm. Ori was watching his father's blood seep into his shirt. He was calm, as if separated from his body. That calm did not comfort anyone. Phelan laughed once more. This time there was no sound. His mouth laughed. His eyes did not. Abe Rourke stood in front of the children. His face was cut. The collar of his suit was soaked with blood. Even his usual roughness looked too soft in that moment. "Don't look," he said. None of them listened, because it was already too late. Sir Alaric Vale was speaking with ministry officials at a distance. His sentences were calm. His hands were not. Solange Delacroix was not on the floor, but standing. Arthur's blood was on her dress. She had pressed Pierre's face into her body. Every few seconds she checked whether the child was breathing. Wildebertha Phoenix remained inside. Ambrose Vale remained inside. Arthur Delacroix remained inside. The Rookwoods, Rowan Calder, Marianne Phoenix Calder, Orion Greymuir, and many others whose names would and would not be entered into record. While Noggs rushed about for the bomb in the lower floors of the London Hilton on Park Lane, blood was being wiped from the children of the great houses in the hidden wing. But blood could only be wiped from skin, not from names. When Sir Wentworth Phoenix saw that the children had been taken out, he sank to one knee. He did not remain standing anymore. There was no need. His left arm no longer worked. His face was covered in blood, but his eyes were still counting. Prudence, Dwyer, Edgar, Marvin, Pierre, Sarah, Dean, Allie, Ori, Phelan, all of them. All of them were alive. Wentworth was not relieved by that knowledge. That knowledge settled on his back like a new gravestone, because if the children were alive, someone would have to tell them what had happened to them. Someone would have to raise them, not replace the dead. That was impossible, but keep account for them. Wentworth Phoenix did not die that night. Something worse happened. He lived. That day, glass broke below. Childhood broke above. Nog Records wrote the bomb. Dynastic Records wrote the blood that fell over the children. And that night, none of the children died. So all of them had to carry something. But not everything that died in that hall stayed dead. In the hidden wing, something remained. Not a body, not a memory, a presence. The first ghost of Bloody Night had opened its eyes, and Hallowmere was not finished with the dead. This file will continue. If you want to know what happened after the children were taken out, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow Hallowmere for the next archive. The doors remember. So should you.